Okay, I guess we can start. So, welcome. This talk will be about growing together, and more specifically about a certain moment that happens in our careers, a certain maybe different kind of thinking that is useful, but is surprisingly not that widespread. So first, let's take an overview of what a typical career might look like. Well, you are fresh out of school, you join your company, you take some first steps. You do some tutorials, you read some docs in the company, just learn the very basics. And then the second step is that you start learning the tools. You start seeing how to put things together. And then when you have those tools in your hands, you start implementing solutions. And this you could say this is the first stage, that you are a solution implementer. There is a defined problem that someone else defined. There is probably a defined solution, at least at a high level, and you are there to implement this solution. Right, so this is still the simple part. And then you implement another solution, and you do that for a while, and then you get good at it. You can really crank out those solutions in your sleep. Your code is tight, well tested, everything is going well. So in time, you graduate to, you start getting invited to conversations that the problem is already defined, but you are brainstorming solution. The solution is not defined yet. You are comparing different options. You are seeing what's possible, what's easy, what's hard, but still the problem is defined outside. And then when you are this problem solver, you can spend a really long time in this mode, that you are just running along this track. You are doing more problems, solving them faster, solving them better in various ways, and there is a lot of value in doing that. And there is, some people really can spend their whole career until retirement in this mode. So there's nothing wrong with that. But if you are competent, if you are skillful, and you have some ambition, and you show that you can be trusted with things, that you will take care of them, you will not drop the ball, you kind of find yourself with more and more responsibility. And suddenly, maybe you are expected to take care of a bigger group of people. So not only solve problems yourself and contribute yourself, but take care of other people. And that doesn't mean that you need to become a manager, even if you are an individual engineer. When you are the more experienced, the more skillful person, then it will, and you want to do that, you will find yourself influencing other people, even if you don't have any formal authority. But the problem is that up to now, people were running along a track, like starting from school. This is the problem to be solved, learn this is the exam, predefined questions and answers, sit in this desk for those hours, everything was predefined. And then when you are a solution implementer, problem defined, solution defined, just do it. Here are the coding standards, here are the tests, here's a code review. This is how you do it. And even if you are a problem solver, you operate within some constraints. And then usually at least the problem is defined. But when you start being responsible for a group of people and for bigger projects, for just bigger things in the world and in the company, that the track ends. And it's sometimes surprisingly hard to orient yourself when you reach this level, because it's a completely different mindset compared to what the whole world expected from you from the beginning. So what can happen there? And obligatory AI-generated image here. So some emotions can happen when you are in this situation. You can get confused that up to now, at least the problem was well defined. Okay, this is the customer, those are their needs, go implement it. even if you are helping coordinate a team to do it, but still it always happened within some context. But as you climb higher and higher, the winds start blowing harder and harder, and the problems kind of disappear. You need to start to become a problem finder, to define the problems that are to be solved. And this is a completely different game than solving them. Another option is that, of course, if you are competent, ambitious, and skillful, and responsible, that you will accumulate more and more. And you have to be careful because it will just become too much all in all. Or you might be isolated, you were a fellow programmer from the start, but now you are a leader, so it might be hard to talk to other people about these new challenges that you are facing. Or, worst of all, you might be misaligned. You might be misaligned with the team, with the customer, that there could be some kind of culture clash. It might not be a good fit, and if you are just hired to solve some technical problems, then maybe this was invisible. But if you become responsible for more things for a group of people, then those misalignments might start to be more important and more painful. So in general, this area is it's no longer a track; it's a jungle, and it's not so easy. So slightly recycling one of my slides from DevOps 2015, you need to become a problem finder. So you are a solution implementer, then you are a problem solver. But now you need to become a problem finder to define the problem for. Excuse me, could you close the door in the back? Thank you. To define those problems, and I don't know how many times I worked with project teams and even myself working with clients and be frustrated and other teams being frustrated that the client doesn't know what they want, and this is like a frustration. They are so incompetent, they don't know what they want. But of course they don't. Why would they know it? This is from some level of, I would say, career maturity. You need to take responsibility for defining those problems and understanding their needs, not imposing solutions on them, but understanding and validating, did I get it right? Is this really the real problem? But the way to, out of this whole fog of human emotions, relationships, ambitions, conflicts, and so on, to define a problem that an engineering team can solve, this is a very big task. And this is the task of leaders, to define those problems. And leaders at any level, not only managers, but also informal leaders that want to have influence. And also, if you are, let's say, you are not responsible in any organizational way, you are a programmer or other creative professional, but you have the ambition, you want to influence other people outside of yourself. Maybe not take care of some project, but influence people in your industry or the world. So that also means that the first step is that there is no defined problem. Okay, this is the problem, write an article solving this problem. That this act of defining the problems and defining them better and better is a whole completely different kind of thing. So with that in mind, this talk will be about some tools, basic tools, to help you navigate this environment. Or if you are helping other leaders grow in this way, then this will also be some simple, fundamental things that you can do to get better at it. Up to now, I drew this story of you progress and then you are this track runner, an athlete, very good, running fast, getting medals. But then at some point you become this, or you need to become this explorer or problem finder. But this is not the whole truth, because, and this is something that I actually discovered only a while ago, that some people are like this from the start. And personally, I feel like I had this mindset from the start. Even in kindergarten, I was always looking for problems. And for much of my career, this was a problem, because when I was in the early parts of my career, being a problem finder was not something that the world expected from me. and then as kind of my credibility grew to match my, let's say, problem-finding appetite, well, then things began to click. But personally, I admit that for me it was a surprise that like not everyone is like that, and that for some people it could be a challenge to achieve this different mindset. So I was not a great track runner, but I think I do have something to say about being this explorer. And also along the way, I learned some powerful tools that really helped me be an effective one. So not just see things that could be better and point it out, but to do it in an effective way that brings people together and creates alignment and agreement and allows things to really happen. So my path was kind of winding. So one different way to look at those tools that I will tell you about in a second is that those are the tools that can allow you to navigate your career if it's not if the track is gone, right? So either you were never a great track runner, you're always an explorer at heart, or circumstances forced you to become this explorer. And that's what we'll talk about right now. So in the meantime, I'm talking about my own career, but for many years now, I was also first as an agile coach and now as an engineering manager. I was helping other leaders also grow, take this step and become leaders in their own mind. So I know it both from my perspective and from the perspective of people I was working with. So one key insight at this level is that influencing other people is more important at some level than the code you write yourself. Of course, code or you can substitute any other concrete creative thing is still important, at least as an example for others, but the impact it has on other people is often more important than the functionality itself. So how do you influence other people? How do you navigate this world? Well, it's the most fundamental tool is, of course, communication. But we will not stop at this like general, of course, communication is important. Everybody knows that, but hard to do something concrete about it. So now we will talk about some concrete things. But how do you influence people? Of course, there are conversations, including Zoom and so on. And the second part is that there is a lot of and more written communication. And if you want to play in this jungle, then basically you have to get better at this kind of communication, both face-to-face, direct, synchronous, and asynchronous text, maybe video. So that's the context that you can keep in mind. So the first, there are two things. There will be two basic like pillars of this approach. That the two most important things are understanding people, and other very important part, making it easy for other people to understand you, which is also a big challenge often. So first, let's focus on understanding people. So this is very simple, but sometimes difficult. So the tools are obvious. To understand people, you can listen to them, and you have to listen to them. You can ask questions, but then there's the question of what questions. Like, not all questions are equal for this purpose. And you should not forget about observing. So even if people say something directly, you should always also like add this observation of their context, of their actions, of their actual decisions compared to their thoughts, because it's not, of course, the basic thing is that they can lie to you, but even if they're not lying, they might not be completely aware of their own internal psychology. None of us are completely in control of our psychology. So those are the three things. And whenever I feel that confused, I always go back to this. Just simple basics. Listen. Did I listen well? How can I listen better? Did I ask good questions? How can I ask better questions? And is there something I missed that I could have seen just by observing the context, the previous communication, and so on? So listen, ask, observe. And now we will do an exercise. So this exercise is that I will ask you, or you will ask each other, a simple question. What is your favorite movie? And then your task will be to listen to the other person describing their favorite movie. And while you listen, you should focus mostly on listening. And there are two golden rules of listening. One is don't talk. And the second one, much more difficult one, is also don't think about talking. So ask the question and listen. It can take a long time. There can be long pauses in the middle. That's okay. Give the person time to think. And while you think, or while they think, you can take the time to observe. Like, what kind of are they excited about this movie? Are they frustrated by it? Are they? I will bring it back in a second. So while you listen, take the time to observe. Try to guess their emotional state. Are they excited? Are they frustrated? Are they sad about this movie? Is it like a meaningful movie or an exciting, fun movie? What kind of is it? And if you really feel that the conversation is stuck, that it's not progressing, someone is pausing, but not only to think, but just really stuck, you can ask only one question. And this is an example of a clean question, which is a question that doesn't distort the information. You want information, you want to interview the other person, you want information from them, you don't want to distort it at this point. Now the point is to understand people. You will have time to introduce your own mental models and your own suggestions in the second part, but it's useful to have this clean skill of listening without influencing. Of course, later you can mix those things, but right now just the one. Okay. So you can only ask one question. Is there anything else about? You can pick a detail. Is there anything else about the director of this movie, if it was mentioned in conversation, or just the movie in general? Is there anything else about? And you can ask this, let's say, 2-3 times, and if after 3 times the answer is no, then you can let go. But the surprising thing is that one is not enough. Even if you say, is there anything else? And pause, immediately switch to listening. Give someone a relatively long time, surprisingly long time, like maybe uncomfortable long time if you are used to quick conversations. But even if they say no, you can say, take a pause, ask it again, and then sometimes after a second or even third question, some important things come up. So, of course, for the point of the movie, that's not so important, but imagine that if you have a serious conversation, that could be really more important. So let's now practice this basic skill of listening. So please find pairs for yourself, and then ask this question: what is your favorite movie? And listen. There will be 2 minutes per person.
zadając pytanie, wskazuje, co bym chciał bardziej.
Możesz kierować uwagę, byle nie zniekształcać tego, na co patrzymy. No, to już jest bardziej zaawansowane, ale tak, możesz wybrać.
Okay, please switch now. Ask the second person about their favorite movie. Okay, time. Please wrap up your conversations and let's return. Time to wrap up your conversations. If you want to continue, please continue during the break. Thank you. Okay, so that was a taste for you or some practice, because of course for none of us listening is completely new, but this was an opportunity to practice. And the key thing is that this is a fundamental skill, but it's so natural that everyone learns it as children that we usually, and especially if we focus on, for example, technology, and we pride ourselves, or other people that we work with derive pride and excitement from the technology part, this can seem, oh, this is obvious, there's no need to practice it. But in reality, especially if you leave this the track and start exploring, this becomes your basic tool. It's like Git, it's like your VS Code or something. It's a basic tool, and you can learn about it. And there are things that can improve how it goes, let's say. I can tell you a few stories about it. So one story that really really changed the way that I approach this area, how I see this area, even though I was already an agile coach before that. But I learned about a book called Time to Think by Nancy Klein. And the basic assumption of this book is that the quality of attention that we give to people influences the quality of their thinking. So it's not only, okay, they are talking and you are just behind the screen passively consuming what they are producing, but the quality of attention you give them doesn't determine, but influences the quality of their thinking. And the exercise that I did based on this book when I was an agile coach in Krakow, some of you might know this company that I'm talking about, I did it with a team, and it was a retrospective, and we decided to do it in a slightly different format, so there was not just throw post-its on the wall and talk about them, but we gave every member of the team 3 minutes to just say whatever they wanted to say about the situation on the team. 3 minutes. And the rest of the team were allowed only to give high quality, were expected to give high quality attention and not react in any way. Of course, not ask clarifying questions, not disagree that, oh, I see it differently. You will have your slot to share your perspective. And also not to agree and not to say any jokes, just not interact in any way. Just give high quality attention. And only as the facilitator, I was allowed to ask, is there anything else? The story went that, okay, so one person talked, and they had 3 minutes. They talked for, let's say, 1.5 minutes. They stopped. I asked, is there anything else? No. Okay, is there anything else? No. I could feel that it's really no, so okay, next person. Next person talked for the whole 3 minutes, and then 3 minutes, 5 seconds. Okay, maybe wrap up. Okay, they wrapped up. Next person. And then one of the people, maybe third, fourth person, he was silent for 1.5 minutes. I know that exactly because I was holding my phone, taking time to control his 3 minutes. But 1.5 minutes, he was completely silent. And in a normal situation, he would not have this 1.5 minutes to think. Like even if you have a nice team that doesn't want to hurt you, but usually if there's like 1 minute break in conversation, you just start another one, right? Or a few seconds, even if you don't interrupt people, but 1.5 minutes is. But because in this protected container, he had this 1.5 minutes, then after this 1.5 minutes, the team was like really attentively listening to him the whole time. And then he started talking, and he filled the rest of his time with some meaningful contribution. It was not revolutionizing, but in this meeting, we would never get this contribution if we didn't create this extreme protective container. And this experience really, like, I knew that listening was important, yeah, of course, but this gave me like a visceral. It reset my expectations of what good listening is like. It's not only don't interrupt or give them 2 seconds after they stop talking, but it can be much longer. And you can ask, is there anything else? And if it's an important conversation, an emotional conversation, maybe in a safe space, you are talking one-on-one with someone, like give them a lot more time than you think. And sometimes like even do an exercise. This is just an exercise. Let's give everyone 3 minutes. And then all your other conversations will taste differently after that. So that's one thing that really, really helped me do it. And the second one was I learned about something called clean language. And this question is from clean language, and I'm using this term clean, which means like non-distorting. It's enough for now. But if you want to learn more about it, I encourage you to learn about clean language. And this was also another game changer for my career, because so I'll tell you another story. So many years before this, or actually not many years, 1 year before this Krakow engagement and this Time to Think story, I was a Scrum Master at a company that I don't think there's anyone here from that company, but there's definitely someone at this conference from that company. But I was a Scrum Master, and I'll be honest, I completely failed at this job. So I joined the company. Okay, I'm the Scrum Master, so I'm here to support Scrum. But I knew that it was not a good idea to just go in and tell people what to do and force people to do Scrum. Of course not. So I thought, oh yeah, I'm so empathetic, I'm so focused on listening, let me ask some questions. And I asked, okay, so we had a meeting about this Scrum thing to plan, what are we going to do about it? And I asked, okay, so team, do you really want to use Scrum? Or not, because I'm not a Scrum zealot. If you want to do something else, I can also help you with that. No, yeah, we want to use Scrum. Okay. I knew that I had to reinforce this question, so I asked, but do you really want to use like proper Scrum, like disciplined Scrum, or just tell the bosses that we are using Scrum so that they get off our back and we do things our way anyway? No, we want disciplined Scrum, the real Scrum. And then I was happy. Okay, I got double confirmation. So, okay, in that case, here are the 10 things you are doing wrong. And as you might imagine, that was basically the end of my career as a Scrum Master at that company. I quickly transitioned to being a product owner, which was another story, but for another time. Definitely that was an important, although not necessarily successful part of my career. But I really learned a lot. And then many years later, I learned about this time to think, and specifically I learned about this clean language that gave me, is there anything else, is one key question, and what kind of is the other, like, top 2 question. So, but just this idea that when you are asking questions, it makes a big difference how clean they are. So if I was asking, oh, do you want to do disciplined Scrum? Then it's kind of a leading question because, well, who wants to say, oh yeah, I'm undisciplined? Like, of course, everyone wants to be disciplined. But clean language focuses on, yeah, okay, we want to find out as much as we can about what the other person is thinking. We don't have to accept it, but we just want to learn it. And distorting at that point will only shoot ourselves in the foot, like in the story that I told you. So later I learned about this clean language. I did some training. I even went to London in February 2020. So, just in time. After learning this clean language, I had a contract, coincidentally, it was not directly related to clean language, but I started a contract with a big consulting company that when I was in university, I kind of dreamed about joining this company, but it was never like a realistic option for me, but for many reasons, and I don't think I would be happy there, but kind of I fantasized about it. And now it was kind of, my dream come true that I was working with this huge global consulting company. But at that time, I knew it would be challenging, but I had this tool of clean language that not only the idea that, okay, listening is important and asking questions is important, but this idea that the questions can distort and the specifically like, so what specific, simple, natural questions work to be clean? For example, is there anything else about? Super simple question. It's not part of any formal methodology. You can add, like the recipient, for example, with nonviolent communication, which some of you might know, I had this experience that like the recipient kind of has to know a little bit about it. Otherwise, they can be surprised about the questions. But clean questions are very natural questions. The other person doesn't have to know that you are using clean language. And I went to this consulting company, and they were working with a contractor. And the point of this whole engagement was kind of to improve their relationship with this contractor. So I went to this contractor, and I spent the whole day, like basically asking just those 2 questions. Is there anything, what kind of? Like, let's say, oh, quality is suffering on this project. Oh, great. What kind of, or not great, but I understand. So what kind of quality? Is there anything else about this quality? like super simple questions, and I took like 14 pages of notes throughout the whole day, and they were also interested. Oh, there's a new coach so they were wondering like, how am I going to influence the situation? Am I going to be like an enemy or a friend or what? So they kind of asked me, oh, what do you think about the situation? But I really stopped myself. I said, okay, now is not the time for my recommendations. I'm just here to learn about you, to understand your perspective. And I only asked mostly 2 questions, like 80% only those 2 questions. I took 15 pages of notes, and in this whole engagement, connecting this super corporate, hardcore, no emotions kind of consulting environment, and those, like, say, normal engineers on the other side, I did manage to, I'll be honest, I didn't like change the complete world. The consulting company is still the consulting company, but it really went much better than this previous story about introducing Scrum that I told you, all because I invested like 50 times more into understanding the people I'm working with. So even though before I knew, listening is important, understanding is important, asking questions is important, but over time, like, it's 10 times more than you might expect. And going back to your leadership things, like, of course, you can use it yourself, but also when you are working with other leaders, it's useful to have those simple, especially engineers, it's useful to have those simple frameworks. Listen, ask, observe, clean questions, simple rules for listening. Don't talk, don't think about talking. So I hope that it will be useful to you. Okay, so it's time to move on to the second part. So the dual, right now I was focusing, okay, let's understand people. But of course it's also important to make it easy for people to understand you. And this is also sometimes forgotten skill. One thing is that we mix trying to learn and trying to influence people, and maybe it's good to separate it. And the second thing is that communication, it's not just bits that will be, let's say, parsed by according to their information theoretical content, but details really matter when you are trying to influence people. As I said, frameworks are important and useful. So there is a framework that good communication is good communication that is optimized for making it easy for people to understand you, and then you can influence them, because otherwise they will just, if they don't understand you, you are already lost. So there are 3 things: CCM, concrete, concise, and meaningful. So let's start with concise. Concise means that you want to put the most important thing first. It doesn't mean that it has to be short. It means that the most important thing has to be first. So when we are talking about communication, especially written communication, the first comes the title. So the title, I recommend, don't use clever titles, don't use super short 2-word titles. Like, give the context. Like, the person you are writing to would probably has 50 messages coming to them. Give them some context, give a full sentence, but one sentence that really captures the concrete, what is most important. Are you communicating a problem? Are you asking for help? Are you just reporting that everything is fine but no action is needed? Like, whatever you are doing, communicating about, put the most important thing first. And you can think about it like an iceberg or a pyramid, that put the most important thing at the top, and then also add a way to get more details. So, of course, maybe they can contact you for more details, or give a link where they can go for more details. So create the summary, most important thing at the top, and then ask for more details. So as in this presentation, I mentioned, clean language is important. Here is one most important clean language question. Is there anything else about? But there's also a link. If you want to learn more, here's clean language. But you don't have to learn all of clean language right now. So number 1, good communication is concise. Number 2 is that good communication in a professional context is concrete. That And there are two perspectives. One is that concrete things are things that we can detect with our senses. Things we can see, hear, touch, in extreme cases, taste or smell. And the second perspective is that concrete communication is communication that answers those famous 5 journalistic or detective questions. Who, what, where, when, how. Those are the basic questions. So if you write something in a professional context, you can ask yourself, okay, what are the concrete things that can be detected with senses that I'm talking about here? And if it's not clear, then it will probably also not be clear to your recipient. Think about those questions, like, does it answer who will do what, when, where, and how? If not, maybe you need to add some information. So second thing is good communication is concrete. And third thing is good communication is meaningful. And meaningful means 2 things. That it has to be understandable. So for example, it has to use the words from the world of your recipient. And meaningful so that they have to care about what you are talking about. So if you are talking about, let's say, an error that happened, if you just do an avalanche of technical details and you are writing to a customer, then it will probably not be meaningful to them. They might not understand it because they are not operating in the technical world. They are operating in their human, their business world. And they might not care. Or at least they might not know why should they care about this long technical explanation. So this is a concrete example that I worked with a team once, that they had a habit of, especially this one architect, like he was really good, really responsible, really wanted to do a good job for the customer, but he had this tendency to write those very long explanations with a lot of technical detail. And it was kind of sad or frustrating or sad because like he really spent a lot of time on it, like time that he could have used for other things. And the result was that it didn't reach the intended audience. So one way you could reframe those this kind of message is that put the most important thing at the top, put it in simple words that anyone can, not necessarily simple, but coming from the world of the person you are communicating with. And then add more details as necessary, but only if necessary. So, for example, in this outage message, the customer was, when they hear, oh, there was a problem in production, what do they want to know? Is it still happening or is it in the past? Did we lose any data? And what was the impact, right? So we added those few pieces of information, and then yes, we kept this big mass of technical information that was also useful. But only in the proper place in the pyramid, let's say. So that's an example. And of course, like when you think about it, I said that okay, it has to be from the world of the user, or it has to be meaningful, so the recipient has to care about what you are talking about. So the question is, okay, but how do you know what they care about? And then, how? Of course, we go back to the first part, how to understand people, listen, ask, observe. So that's a kind of framework that I used myself and was helpful for me, and I hope it will be helpful for you. How are we on time? We still have some time. So the one thing is that those are some, like we talked about this career, and there's this truck runner mode, and there's this explorer mode, and maybe you want to become a problem finder, or you need to become a problem finder. And those are some fundamental tools, that those are not engineering tools, but they are an equivalent in this human world, is just good, effective professional communication, understanding people effectively without distortions. It's not like hippie stuff because we are nice to them. No, this is only because we want to be effective. We need to accurately understand the world, and those are the tools to do it. And then we want to communicate in a way that will be read by the recipient, understood, and so on. And how does it connect to being this problem finder? So in order to define those problems, first you have to understand the landscape, right? You have to know who is involved, and you have to understand at least a little bit about their needs. But the problem is that, of course, this is not a piece of like code or data in a file that you can read and be 100% sure that it is correct. They change their mind, they are not sure about it. So you learn a little bit about what they need, then you develop some sort of solution, you communicate about it, let's say even communicate the idea in a way that they can understand to get feedback, is this the right way? If yes, you produce some prototype, MVP or something, present it, then switch back to listen, ask, observe. Is this the right direction or not? And then maybe you have mixed messages, right? Some people like it, some people don't like it. And then again, you have to be the problem finder. You have to decide, like, what do we want to do in this situation? And this is a completely different domain that there will be no, even after the fact, you will not know if this was the optimal thing to do. This is just the nature of this domain. So some people are like have this obstacle that they are used to having this, it's correct solution or not correct, but right in this world, like no correct solution. You can only iterate, you can only learn more by listening, asking, observing, by communicating well, and that's the way to do it. Okay. I have a bonus piece, but right now this is the end of the main part. So do you have any questions? Yes? Is there anything else? Yes, there is something else, yeah. But any other questions? I will come back to it in a second if you want. Or we can stay alone. Yeah, go ahead. So if I understand correctly, the question is, in our modern, remote, fast-moving world, we might not have time to form a team, sit with them, and get to know each other in a deep way. So I would say that, yes, that's true. And this is a bigger challenge than when we had a lot of time to drink coffee in the office. But still, the principles, like, I like this framework because it's the raw principles that you just cannot escape. And if you don't have much time, then do a little of it. And especially the second part becomes important. So maybe you need to start with making it easy for people to understand you. Let's say you are the customer or the team leader and you are working with someone. You want to say, okay, I would like to invite you to do X, Y, and Z. And you want to make sure that they understand. And then maybe you can learn together with them. And then maybe you want to teach them to ask you questions, so that they know that they understand you, right? So they want to say, okay, so you want me to improve quality in this project. Do I understand you correctly? Yeah, that's what I mean. Okay, what kind of quality? Is there anything else about this quality? And the question is, what if you don't have time for that? Well, the cost is that if you don't communicate effectively and there is a miscommunication, then there will be unpleasant surprises later. So Yeah, that's yeah, for sure. So I would say that the tools are the tools, and if you don't have time to use them, then it's a risk, and you can be aware of it. And of course, if you decide that you want to, those are just some fundamentals. It's not the whole story. So if you feel that in your project you need to do more, that's, I guess, fine too. Any other questions? Is there anything else that you would like to know? Okay, so I don't hear any additional questions. So I have one more thing. That there is one more thing. That when you are this person that is becoming a leader, or wants to become a leader, or is already a leader, or you want to increase your influence, then those conversations and those, let's say, individual pieces of communication about a single project or something, this is of course very important. This is the foundation of our work, but it might not be enough. There is a thing that you can put on top of it that might not replace what you do on your projects, but will be a good booster for your career. So, for example, speaking at conferences and maybe organizing some training and teaching other people what you know, writing about it, speaking, especially if it's recorded and on YouTube, it will magnify your influence by a lot. So for some people, of course, are professional trainers, and that's fine too. But my belief is that for most professionals, most ambitious, creative, fast-growing professionals should have this booster of sharing their knowledge in some way. And that means making things, getting into a habit of making concrete things that are useful to people and that will pay dividends over time. Because if you do, let's say, one project well, the biggest result is that, okay, there's success now, your job is continued, done. But if you create something useful that has an URL, it will pay dividends after years. So in this presentation, I shared a slide, like I reused one slide from 2015 that was like a piece of value that was packaged. And recently, someone on LinkedIn shared that, oh, I watched your conference talk from like, I think almost 10 years ago, like a long time ago. And oh, thank you, it was very valuable. So I didn't do any extra work. It was already there, and it just generated some additional value. And some of this value even came back to me that she thanked me for this contribution. So if you are thinking about this leader that wants to like navigate in this wider world, it's useful to get into this habit of making things useful, things people want that will pay dividends over time. So how do you apply this thing, like make things that people want? How do you know what people want? Well, listen, ask, observe. Make it easy for them to understand you. And then another round, like how are they reacting to your stuff? Again, listen, ask, observe. Not only listen, not only ask, but the whole triangle is important. So make things people want and things that will pay dividends over time. But a common, and I'll be honest that at our company right now where I work, Upsilon, that we introduced this pattern. We are calling it show your work, and we are doing a lot of it. And one common obstacle is that, oh yeah, I know it would be nice to share, but who has time like to write a whole article or speak at a conference? That's a lot of work. And yes, it is. I think it's worth it, but it is like a stage. But I recommend that everyone starts with learning to capture and package things that you are already doing. So you are doing this project. You are talking to people. You have maybe some successes, maybe some failures. The failures you can package as learning. You are thinking about it anyway. You are talking with someone at a conference. Think about like what can you package and put it somewhere where it has an URL and it can serve other people. So with minimum additional effort, things you are doing anyway. So capture and package, put it online, and then online, of course, it may be in a private company area or maybe publicly on the internet. And then once you have those packages, you can connect them in different places. share them with people who, when they ask a question, you can say, oh, I wrote a blog post about it, here it is. You can collect it, you can create collections. Oh, those are the articles I wrote over the previous 5 years. But they are not completely new topics developed like from scratch. They are things that you are working on anyway, things that you are thinking anyway, and actually maybe writing this article will help you organize your thinking and increase the success of your current project. And then you can combine, like this slide, for example. I reused this slide, combined it into made it a little bit easier to create another thing that is hopefully useful for you. So apart from those two pillars of understanding people and making it easy for people to understand you, there is also this third part of the system that you want to make things that people want, that will pay dividends over time. And here are some tactical things how to do it. Okay, so now it's really the end. Thanks a lot. If you want to ask any more questions, find me in the hall. Thank you. If you want to find me online, here I am. If you want to join the company that I work with, we are hiring. So, thank you.